reticulate those splines, activate your missiles, and prepare the sidewinder snake gun, because it's time for Airwolf. And these are all things that are active on the Airwolf helicopter. Brian Vaughn, what's your favorite thing that the Airwolf helicopter can do?
Have Ernest Borgnine inside of it.
Spencer Hendricks, what's your second favorite thing the Airwolf helicopter can do?
Well,
Does that mean that is number one correct?
Yes. Yeah, you won.
It's not like your opinion, it's just there obviously is that. No, my favorite thing is how clearly all the buttons are labeled. So you know exactly what you want to do and what kind of attack you're going to go on, and then you just kind of look at it and you hit the button and it does it.
That's a good point. Do you think that in most attack helicopters, you have to know the manual?
Yeah, I don't think there are
A, button B,
that you're,
not
I don't think it'll tell you what it's going to do. Not so much. But this Airwolf, it does.
Well, I think Airwolf's command controls were much clearer than Street Hawk's, for instance.
That's true.
That's true.
Well, Street Hawk just had the one button that he pushed, which was laser, right?
Yeah. Well, there were other buttons. I don't know what they did.
And Airwolf does have a laser. Let's be very clear. It does.
Well, guys, I'm psyched and ready to talk about Airwolf. I've been bringing this stupid show up for a while. I really didn't even know what it was until we started this venture for these 2 weeks, and I learned what it was, and I'm delighted that it is what it is. So we'll find out the production and the creation of Airwolf. We'll talk about the cast, and then we'll get into our episode today, which is Season 3, Episode 2, Airwolf II. And that's because, essentially, we have a kit versus car.
We have a car situation.
Exact same thing.
Yeah, I had that in my notes as well.
I'm thinking that the entire time. In
There
the
is
same
one
era.
problem. Well, nothing's as cool as car. However, there is one factor that does increase Airwolf 2's coolness, and we will get to it soon. I don't want to spoil it. Van, I want you to get to say what is so special about Airwolf 2, namely
the pilot.
The pilot.
Yeah, we will discuss that. And that's the thing is...
And he's so named to do this.
Oh, it's so fitting. The difference here is that kit versus car, kit and car are the thing. Whereas in Airwolf, you have a machine, but it still needs a pilot. Kit and car don't need pilots.
They don't need
They
a pilot.
are pilot.
I think
They
that's
will
kind of...
begrudgingly allow pilots sometimes, but they're not really doing anything in there.
That's kind of a mistake on Knight Rider's part to show that Carr can do anything no matter what idiot is inside of him, because it kind of lets you know that David Hasselhoff's not really needed for Kit to solve crime.
That's true. It's a little bit of a conundrum in Knight Rider that I'm sure people are sitting and thinking about.
Yeah.
As we speak, they're like, why would they do that? Because that really lessens David Hasselhoff's role.
Do you think those same people that are pondering Knight Rider all day long, they're thinking, man, I wish there was a show that kind of reminds me of Knight Rider that is worse?
I bet they are.
That came along just like a couple years later, coincidentally.
Yeah.
So you guys did. I mean, this is obvious, but you could not help but find the comparisons, right? With that, right, the entire time.
You're right there.
Yeah, it's in your face.
And of course, Knight Rider came out first, so it established this concept of weird guy, weird thing show in the 80s. Well, let's get into the creation of Airwolf. It was an American dramatic television series that aired on CBS for its first 3 seasons. That was in 1984 through 86. And then after that, the USA Network picked it up for its 4th and final season in 1987. The show is about the titular Airwolf. It's a super secret government attack helicopter, and it is piloted by ace pilot Stringfellow Hawk, who often is referred to as String by his buddy Ernest Borgnine. We'll get more into him in a second.
Mostly just Hawk, though.
But Hawk is usually what we go for, and that's, I'd say 90% of my notes are Hawk. Occasionally I'll throw in a string. Occasionally I'll say Stringfellow Hawk. Sometimes I say fellow.
Sure, fella.
I'm a little wild like that. You know, like I'm Seamus.
Yeah.
In the first episode, the Airwolf is built by this lunatic genius guy who was working for the Firm, which is a fake division of the CIA.
John Grisham, it's his division, the Firm.
He's there, and it's solid. It's pretty good.
Yeah, Gene Hackman's in it, in the movie.
The genius lunatic is Charles Henry Moffat, and he comes up a few times in our 2 episodes. He stole the Airwolf after creating it and used it to attack the Firm, which then horribly scarred our chief member of the organization, Archangel. Moffat had planned on selling the Airwolf to Muammar Gaddafi in Libya.
Really?
Yeah, that was the plan in the episode.
I wonder how history would have been altered if he had Airwolf.
If Gaddafi had Airwolf, well, he would have taken over northern Africa, I can tell you that. Archangel ends up recruiting Stringfellow Hawk, who was a test pilot during the whole building of Airwolf thing.
Was that back when he was young?
No, it was pretty much exactly this, which is a tired, leathery man who's drunk.
He's so leathery. That's what struck me. Swarthy, even.
Instead of giving Airwolf back to the firm after Stringfellow managed to steal it back essentially from Moffat and kill Moffat, of course, as well, he decides to keep it hidden so the government doesn't have access to it, but he will agree to run missions for the firm using Airwolf, provided they continue to help him search for his long-lost brother, who's known as St. John Hawk, who I guess was a pilot in Vietnam, and they never found him after Vietnam, and Stringfellow believes he's alive and out there, so he's searching for his long-lost brother. Now, the amazing part is, after the first 3 seasons when the show really struggled and was canceled by CBS, it was picked up by USA Network and completely retooled. They didn't even really have the helicopter, so they just used archival footage of the helicopter, and they didn't have the actors either. They killed Ernest Borgnine's character in the first episode without him even being there. They used a body double.
What are they trying to play the role of food?
Pretty much. And then they took Stringfellow Hawk and injured him, so he was pulled out after the first episode, and they replaced him with St. John Hawk. And he became the star of Airwolf for season 4. It sucked. Nobody liked it. They canceled it. Boom. It's dead.
Well, when you started that whole explanation of Airwolf's history and you said after the first 3 seasons, I'll admit that I was surprised it got 3 seasons.
Well, here's the thing. But let's get into the creation of it first. The show was commissioned by none other than Hollywood and, more importantly, Boob Tube Boys legend Donald P. Bellisario. Now, this is the 3rd show of his that we've covered.
Are you sure it's not more?
It's only 3. I looked it up. I was shocked it was that low. Even though 3's high.
I bet you he's produced some of them or something. I feel like we've seen his name in credits.
Yeah.
Sure.
I definitely recognize the name from just everything.
Weirdly enough, I'm the one who's covered all 3 of our Donald Bellisario
I don't know how
shows.
weird that is. That seems pretty predictable.
True. Especially when I say the names. Although you picked one of them. Magnum P.I.
Sure.
was the first one that you selected for me in a hot potato round. Then there was Quantum Leap and, of course, now Airwolf.
What do you think it says Bellisariopus?
It might be Magnum, honestly. I think
it could be.
Realistically answering this, Magnum got the best ratings. It went the longest time. It was one of the most successful.
And they even had like a star helicopter in that show too, that TC drove.
Yeah, does he have a fucking helicopter fetish?
He must feel like helicopters are the coolest thing there is.
We have covered a lot of helicopters because, of course, ER famously gave us a helicopter nightmare.
Thanksgiving nightmare.
Well, believe it or not, one day while he was working on Magnum P.I., Bellisario had a new idea, and it was for a show about a treasure-hunting airplane pilot, and he eventually worked out a script for Magnum that was filmed and aired, and it was basically a backdoor pilot for a concept of Airwolf. They brought on a special guest star for it who was going to star in Airwolf, and anyway, that guy's not part of it. But on this episode, that man crashed his plane onto the estate where, of course, Magnum and Higgins lived, and then they had a whole thing where they were trying to find out why he was sabotaged or whatever. It didn't work. Nobody really liked that episode, so they didn't make that the next Airwolf. But Bellisario did retool the concept and made it a helicopter instead of an airplane, and then Airwolf came about a few years later.
Retooling the concept is just his whole career.
Well, as far as the success of Airwolf, it really was fairly popular when it came out for its first season. Not super popular, and it cost a lot of money, so it needed to be super popular to continue as it did. And its main actor, Jan Michael Vincent, and we'll get more into him later too, he ended up being the highest paid man on television for Airwolf because he made $200,000 per episode.
That is
insane,
upsetting.
Right? And that amounts to $600,000 per episode in today's money. Now, it's changed a bit. The highest paid actors make more than that now, but back then, they really didn't get paid as much. I looked it up, and for example, Jared Leto was taking home $750,000 per episode for the Apple TV limited series We Crashed. And that's all one word.
What is that?
So you've heard of it?
No.
I haven't really either.
No, Apple TV has all these things. Like my mom will tell me about them, or my sister, AKJ 519. They'll say, there's this show with 8 movie stars in it on Apple. And I will have never heard of it whatsoever.
Yeah, I haven't either. And again, he made $750,000 for that. Like the thing that I'm sure lots of people don't know of, because Apple TV, who has Apple TV anyway? More realistically, to compare to Jan Michael Vincent's salary back then, Kevin Costner was taking home $1.3 million per episode of Yellowstone. So they make a lot more now, but back then, still a fuckload of money.
Why is this the chosen actor, would you say, to have that bestowed upon him? In your humble opinion, Van?
Let's get into that in a sec, because I want to
Tell me about Jan, Van.
Well, I want to clarify that what happened with Airwolf as a show, because I watched a first season episode, and It was good.
What?
I'm not joking. It was a good piece of dramatic television. And that's because the first season was meant to be a Cold War espionage type show. And it was made that way. It was awesome. I cannot stress how good that first season episode of Airwolf was, because these two that we're going to cover are not good.
No.
They are bad television.
No, and they have a lot of Colonel Sanders imagery in them.
But what happened is, because I said the show cost a lot of money, it didn't make enough back in the ratings. It was pretty good, but not amazing. So after the first season, the producers said, let's get a full-time female lead, which they probably should have had anyway. But more importantly, let's dumb it down and no longer do international spy stuff and make it more domestic and family-friendly. And that was the death knell for Airwolf. Season 2 was much goofier. Nobody really liked it that much. Season 3 got even worse.
And that's what we'll be talking about both weeks.
Yeah.
And these aren't, these are more what we're used to with 80s primetime TV.
Yeah, bingo. And basically then the show got canceled. So initially this was supposed to be a huge hit that was going to be a really dramatic show, and it just didn't quite pan out. Now, as far as the cast, one of the big reasons Airwolf struggled is because Jan Michael Vincent, its lead actor, was not only the highest paid actor in television, but he was also addicted to booze and drugs. And you can see it in these 2 episodes. His eyes are glossed over. He sweats profusely.
He's not feeling well.
He does not look good. And that was a problem. He had a lot of trouble getting there on time, doing what he was supposed to do, reading lines.
I was going to say, I noticed he had trouble acting.
He was actually a leading man in the 70s, and he was in the films Going Home, which he received a Golden Globe nomination for Best Supporting Actor. He was in The Mechanic and Big Wednesday, before he also received another Golden Globe nomination for his performance in TV miniseries The Winds of War, which then led into him getting the star of Airwolf. So he at one point was a big deal actor.
The arrow is pointing up for the guy.
He not only had issues with substances, but he also had aggression problems. And he was arrested multiple times for violence against women.
Oh.
In 1986, he was charged with felony assault, but his lawyer argued that the woman suing him, quote, tripped and fell on a telephone cord.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And so he was, he got off on it. And look, we never believe women, even now. Certainly now it's gotten worse. But back then we still didn't. So this is pretty questionable.
That societal problem persists and was back then, I guess, even worse because cover-up seemed easier to do.
Vincent spent time in jail for drunk driving and assaulting his fiancée in 2000. And then he had his right leg amputated below the knee in 2012 after an infection before he finally died in 2019 at the age of 74. Now, this is, of course, his second appearance on the Boob Tube Boys. You guys remember his first?
No.
It was a big deal, and it was a long time ago. He was Max, the guy who Reno Raines saved in the Australian episode. He was the one that I vividly remember when Breezer opens the bag with all the money. Max goes, "Breezer, old buddy, you've been holding out on us." And then Breezer goes, "Ah, ha, ha, ha." It was amazing. But yeah, that was him.
That makes so much sense, too, because Jan Michael Vincent's voice is already starting to be shot here.
Yeah, and it was bad then.
Yeah.
Next up is my favorite cast member of this show, and probably your guys' too. We'll see. Ernest Borgnine, and he plays the role of Dominic Dom Santini. He's the father figure and partner of Stringfellow Hawk. Borgnine, who was born Hermes Ephron Borgnino, which almost sounds cooler than...
It does.
No, it does sound cooler than Ernest
definitely
Borgnine.
cooler.
Yeah.
He just probably had to make it what it is for his film career or whatever.
It's like when Jewish people will switch their name
Dumb
to
it
something
down.
very white, so that way they can be accepted. He was a prolific Hollywood actor whose career began in 1951 with his turn as Hu Chang, that's Huchang, in China Corsair. Now, I don't know what China Corsair is, but that man is not a Hu Chang. I can tell you that for sure. This is like, what was his name? John Wayne being Mongolian
Genghis
leader.
Khan.
Genghis Khan, yeah. Wild.
I'm going to kill a lot of people.
It's me, Hu Chang. Look at my gap in my teeth.
I'm not taking this hat off, not for nothing.
I probably had this belly back then.
I shower in this hat.
I was actually going to insist on each of you doing an impersonation. I don't have to, it seems.
It'll happen naturally, too.
Yeah, it'll come.
He was also in movies like Escape from New York, The Poseidon Adventure, and something I found called A Grandpa for Christmas.
Wow.
Where he plays the titular grandpa.
I want to see that.
Yeah,
now.
I think we should watch it.
Yeah. I mean, there's no argument against that.
Now, of course, I know Ernest Borgnine from his episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000. It was called Merlin's Shop of Mystical Wonders.
This was my introduction to him.
Oh, man. The story is basically he's a grandpa telling his grandson these stories because he used to be a Hollywood writer or something because the power's out. But what it really is they had two movies they wanted to mush into one movie. So they had him be the framework to add them together by also using Merlin.
So wizard. They could scrape by 84 minutes or whatever.
And that is, by the way, there's a new movie coming out. I think it's an A24 it's a Stephen King movie called The Monkey. Have you guys seen this?
No.
It's about the Symbols monkeys.
Yeah, and that is also the Symbols monkey that child repeatedly uttered the phrase rock and roll Martian while the monkey clapped its cymbals.
That's the one, that rock and roll Martian, a song
that's true
that you guys made many moons ago.
Like 55 years ago now.
Now, to my knowledge, Ernest Borgnine never beat his wife, and he is the opposite of Jan Michael Vincent, having spent a lot of his career donating to charity, also helping his wife with her own cosmetics company. And in 1996, this is my favorite Ernest Borgnine story, he apparently bought a bus and just drove it around the U.S. meeting fans.
Wow.
That was the entire purpose. He would pull over and be like, I'm Ernest Borgnine.
It's like he's Rod Beck.
And that was it.
Honestly, you can't just, that guy, when he talks, you smile. There's nothing he can say that it wouldn't make me happy.
It's just that glowing, rosy face. You know, his eyes are very expressive.
What was that, Spencer, that no matter what he says,
no matter
brings
what,
a smile to your face, right?
Make me happy.
Well, let's see about this, because a few years before he died, he had an interview on a Fox News network, not in that regard, but like just a news crew that he was talking to. It wasn't politically charged, although I don't know his politics. And he had this to say about longevity.
To the show, but real quickly, you're 91 years old. You look fantastic. You look like you're in your late 60s, early 70s. What's the secret?
I don't dare tell you.
No meat. You don't eat meat.
I masturbate a lot.
Okay, I think.
Yeah, Ernest Borgnine jerks off a bunch.
Well, that's okay.
He does.
You guys didn't know that?
No, I'm relieved. I was afraid that was going to be much worse than it was.
No, it's fun. It's not a mean thing.
Yeah,
I think it would be foolish to have ever assumed that Borgnine didn't crank it, you know?
Yeah, I bet he cranked it in between takes on the show.
I bet he cranked it on that bus as he was going across the nation.
When he was in the Airwolf, he was jerking it like crazy.
He was ripping on it in the Airwolf plane.
That's why they couldn't get him to answer the radio on the next week's episode. He was busy doing that in there.
Too busy.
Jan Michael Vincent gets in there. Borgnine, the controls are slippery.
All the buttons are sticky, aren't they?
Did you guys remember him in his brief cameo in that Simpsons episode in the camp counselor?
Yeah. He has the hat on, the ship captain
and there's
hat.
a monster at the end of that episode.
The other one too, and I know none of us really watch the show a lot, but you might recognize his character. There's someone on SpongeBob named Mermaid Man. And he's like a superhero, this elderly superhero.
I'm familiar with this.
I'm sure you've seen an image. I have too. That's the extent of it. That was Ernest Borgnine.
Oh.
And I guess the gimmick is he always yells evil. Like he's going to get
That's
evil.
That's pretty cool.
That evil!
And like Ernest Borgnine seems like he's shaped like those characters naturally.
100%.
You just gave me a brilliant idea, and I don't know why we haven't. We should have covered SpongeBob at some point. We should have done a couple.
We really ought to.
It's weird that we haven't.
I mean,
we've done an animated show. No, it's over. Can't do SpongeBob.
Maybe one of the Borgnine
Once we realize we didn't do it, we just can't.
Are you ready, kids? Who jerks off on a bus and drives around the country?
Ernest Borgnine!
We're going to talk about the next guy. It is Alex Cord. He plays the authority figure Michael Goldsmith Briggs III, a.k.a. Archangel, and he works for the firm and plays both friend and foe to Hawk and Santini as he tries to get Airwolf back at any opportunity. Now, in the first season, he was very much is he friend or foe?
Yeah.
After that, after the second season started, he became more just friend. And like in this episode, he was like, we're buds, guys.
Yeah, he's just like totally aligned with him in the two that we cover.
But early on, that wasn't intended for the role. He is always dressed in immaculate white outfits and wears glasses, except one lens is always blacked out. I think it's his left eye. It's like an eye patch because he lost the eye during the original Airwolf attack on the firm by that crazy guy, Moffat, who built the Airwolf. He blew up the firm and injured Archangel to the point where he was blinded in one eye and then also had a limp, which also doesn't matter sometimes.
I guess, apparently.
I didn't notice a limp really at all.
Now, like he has a cane.
Yeah, you're right. but he's pretty. He's lithe for his age.
He's
he gets
like
around very
muscly,
well.
too.
Yeah.
He has a real plantation Colonel Sanders feel to him, though.
Yeah, big mustache at all times.
Yeah.
He's in a ton of movies, Alex Cord, including Naked City. Oh, well, these are shows too. Naked City, Gunsmoke, The $6 Million Man, Walker, Texas Ranger, and then his final film appearance as General Stonewall Jackson in the 2009 Kevin Sorbo action film Fire Down Below. Because I saw Fire Down Below and thought it was a Steven Seagal movie.
Yeah. What's that one called?
Fire Down Below.
They're both just called that?
Yeah,
Wow.
both of them. One of them has Sorbo, one of them has Steven Seagal.
Wow, you
Pick
can't.
your poison.
Yeah, you're just not going to see a good movie if it's called that.
And then finally, starting in season 2, we had Catelyn O'Shaughnessy. She was played by Jean Bruce Scott over 44 episodes. This is the woman that they brought in that they wanted a main female lead starting in the second season. And she's great. She fills
She's
a good
like
role.
your Bonnie on Knight Rider.
Yes, except she's a little more active. We don't see it much in these episodes, but like she flies the Airwolf.
Oh,
She shoots at people and does all that stuff.
good for her.
Well, they do let Bonnie shoot missiles at Carr. It's not a task to take lightly.
Scott mostly had TV appearances in her career. She was in Knight Rider, of course. She was in Newhart, Matlock, and then she also had a recurring role on, you guessed it, Magnum P.I. for
Wow.
10 episodes. That's how
Look at
she
all
led
the
into being on the show.
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, Boo Boys separation here.
Belisario.
Yeah, nobody ever sits around and plays 6 Degrees of Donald P. Belisario.
They should. In 2007, Scott worked as the executive director and producer of Native Voices at the Autry, which is a cool program devoted to creating stage works by Native American playwrights. It's kind of neat.
Uh-huh.
So good for her.
When you said Autry, I thought it was going to be related to the singing
The singing
cowboy,
cowboy, yeah.
Ian Autry.
The one who made the Angels.
Yeah.
my
Made
team.
them.
And that does it for the main cast. However,
No, it doesn't.
for the main cast,
Oh, okay.
however,
Oh, my heart.
there is a special guest star for this episode. We are going to cover him. This is technically his first Boob Tube Boys appearance
Yeah, that's true.
because he showed up in the motion
It was a
picture
different
Man.
show.
They're good, the motion picture men.
They're pretty
Just as
great.
good as us.
Yeah, really similar.
Who want? Let's say his name after 3. I'll say 1, 2, 3, and then we'll say the name.
Sure.
All right. 1, 2, 3.
Wings
Hauser. He's back.
We love him.
He's back, baby. He was the drunk friend in Champagne and Bullets, Road to Revenge / Get Even. Yeah. Did I get all the names?
Yeah.
yeah, and he's
good.
drunk here too.
He's drunk everywhere, Brian. And he plays Harlan Jenkins,
Harlan Jenkins.
the Southern Texan bitter rival to Stringfellow Hawk. And like I said, he dials up that Texan for this episode. It is amazing.
Listen here, there's no pilot better than me in the sky.
Now, pilots in the ground, maybe. We don't have ground pilots in Texas.
Curl my hair, it's starting to go straight.
All right, with the cast out of the way, it is time to dive into this episode of Airwolf with Season 3, Episode 2,
So we're into maybe.
Airwolf 2. Yeah, I did that on purpose. I didn't. I just took advantage of it. All right, we begin as so many shows of the 1980s and sometimes 70s did. This was a thing back then. They don't do it now, but they show you a montage of what's coming up. And we're going to skip it. We're going to talk about it anyway in the episode. So
Wings Hauser's in it.
he's in it a lot.
Yeah.
So is Jan Michael Vincent, believe it or not. But mostly that consists of just helicopters fighting each other. Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
Yeah.
They almost seem to be implying that most of the rest of the episode is inconsequential when they do that. When they smash in like the very end, they're like, the rest of it's just kind of dumb.
You'll get there. Though, when I was watching this, I texted Van immediately and said, I know why you chose this episode, because I had no idea Wings Hauser was going to appear. And I mean, he's like the first guy you see in the preview.
And that would not be something that you could see and not pick that episode. You couldn't be like, I don't want to do this one.
It's part of BoobTube law, I think.
And none of us have ever been scrolling through episodes to pick and seen Wings Hauser and said,
And then
well,
like, no.
let's find something better than that.
No, this is just the first time it's happened. It's
Yeah.
going to happen again.
I
Someone will
hope
be
so.
scrolling along and see that name.
After the montage, slowly, a helicopter rises into view. It comes up from behind a mountain or something, and it's just saying, hello there, I'm Airwolf, pleased to meet you. And then the synth riffs kick in, and it's no longer fun Airwolf. It's badass fighting Airwolf. We see like cool 80s wireframe technology. Like it looks 3D, but it isn't.
Yeah, we're
It's
gridding.
fires.
We're hardcore gridding it up here.
And just like that, we're Airwolfing. And we see Stringfellow Hawk wearing a tux. He's kissing a pretty lady. Archangel, he's in the intro sequence. He rides a horse, which that happens in this episode too. Caitlin puts on some pants. She points a gun. And then at the end, Ernest Borgnine smiles and does an old, chubby, wacky guy stuff. That's the intro sequence. It's fine. It's 6 out of 10.
I don't mind this song.
I like the
I
song.
think it's kind of fun.
It's not my favorite, but it's a fun
It should
song.
be shorter. These are long credits.
Oh, yeah, they're very long. But song, it's okay.
Show should be shorter too.
This is a 30-minute show. Spencer, you say this all the time.
Yeah.
This should not be an hour.
No, and it's also not even, it's like 48 minutes because it was the early 80s or mid 80s.
I think that was my one, because mostly these are pretty enjoyable, but that part definitely, when I saw the amount of time, a little piece of me died because it was like, there's no way they need to do that.
And obviously in our next episode, they use a lot of that time with titillating action sequences.
Indeed. The show proper opens with the credits rolling and a helicopter buzzing around town, and it lands somewhere in a parking lot, like on a building. Two figures dressed in white step out of the helicopter with a white briefcase in hand. And then we're apparently at the local Chamber of Commerce's Man of the Year ceremony.
Hell yeah.
And we've got a man, he's giving a speech about bravery, while we then see our hero, Stringfellow Hawk. He's sitting next to another man, and they are both dressed in tuxedos. Fancy formal event. The man next to Hawk says, well, you'd think they could invent a comfortable tux. And Hawk grins, and he laughs, and then he follows that up with, testimonials and convertible pow.
And then he threw up in his mouth.
I don't know what he said. I had to rewind and check, and I think he says testimonials and comfort don't go together, pal.
Yeah, everybody says that.
But once again,
I remember my mom telling me that in the crib.
And she's right, too.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not disputing the fact. But yeah, he says testimonials and convertible pal. The man giving the speech wraps it up and says, I'd like to introduce everyone to a man whose life embraces courage, the Chamber of Commerce's Man of the Year, Roy Starkey. Hell yeah, Roy Starkey.
Go get him, Roy.
Clap.
They did a little bit of the Birdemic thing where they just clapped and clapped and clapped and clapped, and it just kind of went on, and it didn't look like they were going to ever do anything.
But eventually, Hawk gets up, even though he's not Roy Starkey. And that's because Roy Starkey is handicapped. He's paralyzed below the neck, apparently. And this is a thing that just persists throughout Airwolf, I guess. Stringfellow Hawk's real good buds with disabled people.
Is that just
good
supposed
for
to be
him.
a thing where they're like, oh, look how good of a guy this character is?
I think it is.
Is this guy involved in any future episodes?
No.
Huh.
No, just a one-off. And they do that a lot. They'll just have a named character that we're supposed to know.
Do you think this is sort of like the screenwriting technique, Save the Cat, where you have somebody rescue an animal to show they're good,
I
like
think
early
so.
in a story? And you really have to do that with Jan Michael Vincent because he's so sweaty. And
He's not likable.
It's the kind of sweaty that he didn't just exercise.
No, I'm zoinked.
Yeah.
That's the kind of sweat.
Zoinked.
And I'm nervous. Well, that's a fitting word for Jan Michael Vincent.
That's a man with a flask in his pants right there.
Oh, so that's what's in his pants next episode, huh? more on that to come. Hawk takes Roy Starkey up to the stage, and still everyone's clapping. But at the back of the room, we see Archangel enter, and he's angrily gesturing at Hawk and demanding that Hawk come over there to talk to him. Hawk pats Roy Starkey on the shoulder, makes his way to the back of the room, while the Man of the Year himself begins his speech to the adoring crowd. Hawk tells Archangel, this is very important, as, you're running up during a big night for a friend of mine, and Archangel starts demanding to know where Hawk was the previous night. Hawk makes a joke. Archangel gets mad. He yells at him and says, look, the only thing standing between the FBI and you, Hawk, is me. He's a polite, weird way of speaking.
That's a pretty good impersonation.
Yeah, it's not bad.
When he gets riled up, it doesn't quite land.
Right.
To a certain degree.
Also, it's not intimidating.
This guy hates the feds. He says it all the time.
I guess it makes sense, too, that it doesn't really fit because that's mostly not what he does. This is the first time we see him, and then the rest of the episodes that we saw, he's nothing like this. So this is out of place for him, and I didn't know it at the time. I was like, well, what's this guy's deal?
And his wardrobe leads me to believe that he's usually on a porch sipping sweet tea.
Well, in the first season, again, this is supposed to be a stand-in for the CIA, and he's supposed to be someone, he says, you can trust me. I'm all in white. Look at me, I'm the good guy.
Yeah.
But maybe he isn't. But now he is the good guy, so that doesn't work. Everyone gets all huffy because he's being loud, and they gasp. Someone tells Archangel and Hawk, shut the fuck up. The two meet up with the woman who we saw walking with Archangel earlier in the episode in the hotel bar, and Archangel tells Hawk that I'm a man who deals in facts and logic. It's important that you know that, because here are the facts and logic, but also Hawk the whole time is saying, what the fuck is going on?
There's a thing that's happening right now, which is someone who he trusts and loves doesn't trust him. and it's really getting into his guts.
It hurts.
What does he say later? That it burns my guts.
Yeah, I think it burns my guts. It comes up later.
My guts are getting real hot.
It sets my guts on fire.
That's the one.
That's what he said.
I've never heard that before, so I definitely took note of that.
I kind of want to use that. I really like saying the word guts, too.
You like guts, and now you can say sets my guts on fire.
Do you have them?
Guts. Do you have them? I don't have a piece of the crag, Brian. I'm sorry.
No. You know what? Why haven't we covered guts yet?
It'll happen.
We got to cover SpongeBob and guts.
There, yeah.
We haven't had a children's game show in a while. Like, what was it? Legends of the Hidden Temple?
That's the last time.
And that was really fun to do.
It actually really was fun. Go check out those episodes.
I'm a big fan of the Purple Parrots.
Yeah, me too. I'm a purple parrot for life.
Finally, we learn what the deal is here. And it turns out at 2300, that's not right. That's 50,000 hours.
Wait, how does time work now?
In Airwolf, it's different. It turns out last night at 2300 hours, a train robbery went down, and it was led by none other than Santini Air.
I had a question for you. It says here this show takes place in the 20th century, but there's a train robbery, which leads me to believe this might actually be the 19th century, and there's like an outlaw on the loose.
It's 2025. There are trains out there right now.
But there's no train robbers.
You don't know that.
I feel like train robbery was a profession that's just gone. Like
Why
jewel
can't
thief.
they rob trains anymore?
I think they do. I think the media keeps it from us.
I think, yeah, big train.
That's the main thing to cover up now.
I'm so sick of big train trying to tell us everything's okay now, and our cargo is being looted left and right.
Listen,
right off the track.
BNSF. Is that right? BNSF?
That's
Fuck
totally
you, man.
right. Yeah, I bet you there's people out there hopping the rails with bindles right now, taking all sorts of things.
Anyway, basically a helicopter that looks like it belonged to Santini Air, that's Ernest Borgnine's character's choppers, it looked like it robbed this train. That's the problem. And it turns out a whole bunch of fuel, ammunition, and missiles were also stolen, and that's all stuff that matches up with what the Airwolf requires. So Hawk takes a deep breath, and he says, I'm going to try and calmly explain this to you as best I can. Myself, Dom, nor Caitlin would ever steal or hijack anything from anyone.
That's really unnecessary. I feel like I know he's angry, but it feels like kind of unneeded for him to just state, we did not do it.
Yeah, you can tell his guts are on fire. He doesn't need to say it.
He should have taken a page from Shaggy and just said, it wasn't me. That's it. That gets the point across.
Yeah, and then Mike would be like, were you in the helicopter?
It wasn't me.
Did you steal the stuff from the train?
It wasn't me.
Did you have sex with my girlfriend?
It was.
Isn't that what that song is about, basically?
Yeah. I saw you banging on the counter. Something like that. I saw you banging in the shower. Yeah. I know the beat. All right. Archangel says, well, you know, String, I spent the last 24 hours telling myself that I've got to believe that you couldn't steal this. It's the facts, babe.
I had a question about that. I don't think that's possible because this happened before 24 hours ago.
Time works differently.
Oh, yeah.
Airwolf,
oh,
right?
yeah.
We've already established that.
Okay, I shouldn't question Michael.
Well, finally, Hawk says, the fact that you don't believe me sets my guts on fire.
I need to go to the hospital.
I'm burning from the inside out. Hawk says it's proof time. You got to put up or shut up, Archangel. And the other man tells him, well, we'll see what this does to your gut. And he plays a security tape taken at the train robbery. The footage is grainy and dark, but we can see a helicopter, and it's dolled up in the American flag. It's a Santini helicopter. This is what they look like. Hawk eases up a bit on his attitude, and he says, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm damn well going to find out. That's not all. Archangel tells our hero, he says, look, the firm is calling for your arrest, and I don't know how long I'll be able to hold off the FBI. Seems like time is not on their side right now. And as we've established, time is different here.
Airwolf is like another dimension.
It's another dimension, man. When you're sitting at home and you're watching Airwolf, bro.
Man, this isn't just some child's entertainment, man. Like, whenever you watch an Airwolf, you can really be transported in space and time just from within inside your mind's eye.
Back at the hangar at Santini Air, Ernest Borgnine and Caitlin are poking at a bunch of bullet holes in one of his helicopters, while Hawk takes photos of it with his giant flashbulb 1980s camera.
I love that camera.
And it makes that noise.
I like that
cool.
noise, too.
He tells the bloated old man and the skinny woman that they need to either find some answers or get out of Dodge, all of them, because they're in trouble. And Borgnine says, well, where are we going to find answers? And Hawk says, at the movies. And he gives a sheepish grin. Now, the cast of Airwolf is not going to the movies. I want to clarify that.
I wish they were. Now, I also wish you did that thing where you figured out what movies were playing whenever this aired.
If the cast of Airwolf were going to the movies here, what do you think they might see? Well, guess what?
What year is this?
1982.
Oh,
no, I'm sorry, 1985, October 5th, 1985. So I looked up what was playing then.
Was it Witness with Harrison Ford?
We can find out. We can determine what the cast of Airwolf would go see if they were given the opportunity.
Oh, the World Series was going on, the Cardinals-Royals one. Boo.
I'm sure America loved that one.
Oh, yeah.
The Missouri World Series.
Killer ratings. Actually, it probably did because there were two things you could watch. Either Airwolf or the World Series.
And Baller Scorpion, man.
Yep.
The number one movie at the box office on that day, again, October 5th, 1985, is Commando. Oh, yeah, they go watch Commando.
Yeah.
So, never mind. We don't even need to do
No, we
this.
don't need to continue.
No, just for your reference, by the way.
Terms of endearment, maybe?
We had Jagged Edge, Back to the Future, Agnes of God, Invasion USA, and Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Two of those I could have plausibly guessed.
Yeah, I think so.
Back to the Future
Agnes of God.
And Pee-wee's. I don't know what the other ones are.
I've not heard of those. I expected, to be more familiar with them.
Commando, I know what is.
And that's what they'd watch. Meanwhile, Archangel and his lady assistant have driven their big white limo up to a building out in the middle of the desert where a bunch of guys in suits are old and standing around with guns. Archangel gets out and flashes his badge, so the old security guy lowers his weapon and says, hey, okay, follow me. But before they make it into the building, they are interrupted by a hokey Texas accent coming from the side. It is Wings Hauser. Big clown head and meaty body.
Little mouth.
He's here. And
I can say that. I got a little mouth, too.
and Harlan Jenkins, that's the character's name. And I might add, the woman who is with Archangel is here, and that's who Harlan's referring to when, well, you'll see.
Well. It's not my old friend, the Angel of Secrecy. How you doing? What's this? Delicious little slice of angel food cake, huh?
Homer Jenkins, isn't it?
Well, it has been a long time, hasn't it? Harlan Jenkins.
Yes. One of Moffat's assistants on the Airwolf design.
No, I think it's the other way around. Well, now that we're establishing identities, who are you?
Again, that is towards the woman that came with
There's a
Archangel.
little bit of Matthew McConaughey in there.
A tiny bit, I could see it.
Wings McConaughey. True Detective starring Wings Hauser and Rick Bodie, John DeHart.
The woman does not respond to Harlan, and he just kind of gives him a dissatisfied look. And Archangel says, she will not speak unless I will it, or it pleases her. The man in white heads inside, but he stops, and he gives one last piece of advice to Harlan.
Oh, by the way, I wouldn't make a move on her. She's a cobra.
Hey, Buckaroo, next time you see me, you're going to know exactly who I am.
All right, two things. Number one, that little noise you heard at the end, the snap and the clap. What you want to describe it, Brian? What?
Yeah, so one of the things about Wings Hauser's signature acting style is it's very herky-jerky. There are a lot of hand motions and his shoulders move a lot, and this is him doing a series of finger clicks and pops.
He does the fist in one hand and pats it.
It's essentially like a cool guy moved in the conversation to say, it's a mic drop is what it is.
It's the finger guns.
Yeah.
But snapping and clapping and waving.
You guys want to see if you can maybe develop your own one of those
I'd
to
love
use?
to, yeah. I think also it bears mentioning, if not already readily understandable, that Wings Hauser is a huge perv in this episode.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, he always is also. Wings Hauser is horny from all the roles I've seen him in.
The only other thing I've seen him in, two things, and he wasn't horny in one of them, but the other one was called Mutant. It was this 80s movie, and he just ran around yelling a name for 3 hours. The other one is
Sounds horny to me.
The one with the killer tire, Rubber.
Oh, I've seen that. I didn't know he was in that.
He is the guy in the wheelchair watching it all.
I saw that before I knew who Wings Hauser was, which is a damn shame.
Yep, and he's just a weird old man in it. It's great. And then, second thing in that clip, Buckaroo. He called the man Buckaroo. That's a thing people have done before.
I think this is probably peak Buckaroo in American culture because The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, that might have been out by then.
Yeah, that was that movie, right?
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum's in that, I think.
Huh.
I've seen it.
I don't know much about it.
He uses it again, right? He's gonna bust that out
here in a minute.
In a couple minutes, yeah.
He doesn't hesitate to bust it out.
What religion do you guys think he practices? Is it probably Huck Finnism or whatever?
It's that or Scientology.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Inside the building where Archangel has now gone, there are a handful of very elderly people. They're sitting around a glass desk, wearing suits, and in the case of one wisecracking old man, an Admiral outfit.
I love this guy.
Now, the head old man, not the Admiral, the head old man is a guy with, ironically, a giant head, but he is named Zeus, and he tells Archangel that the firm has put up with your shenanigans for far too long. In your defense of Hawk and the Airwolf, that's treason.
And I think it's fucked up how he goes around impregnating people with lightning bolts and shit.
But there's nothing you can do about it.
No, because
sometimes he'll turn into a goat.
Yeah, exactly. And you won't know it's him.
The Admiral over here, after hearing treason, pipes up and he says, unless Hawk has been selling vodka to the Russians, treason seems a little strong to me, huh?
Now,
and then he winks.
This is another, and this happens in Airwolf a lot, where the laughter and the clapping that ensues is too long.
Well, this guy, as we quickly learn, the Admiral, is basically like Statler and Waldorf together in real life.
Got a little twinkle in his eye. He's always nice, though. You know right from the beginning, even though he's with this evil consortium, that he's probably a good guy.
He got in it for the right reasons and tries to save it from the inside.
Yeah.
Nice mustache.
I also think he has a point that sometimes in the military sort of lifestyle, that is the hot button go-to, like, I think this is treason. Like, when they really want to say you've done something bad, that's where they'll go, no matter what it is.
It's funny when actual treason occurs, we are not so quick to recognize it.
Nobody gives a shit when it really happens.
That's as specific as I'll be. I'm scared. Let's continue.
Yeah, agreed. I do think I have a rant next episode, but we'll save that. Zeus says, nevertheless, Archangel's trusting of Hawk has not only put this organization, but also this country in jeopardy. And as of today, Michael Goldsmith Briggs III, you are fired from the firm. Archangel gets a furiously perplexed look on his face, and the Admiral chimes in rather helpfully.
You've been canned, son.
Son. It bears mentioning that Michael Goldsmith Birds III is like 60.
Yeah, he's plenty old. Archangel composes himself, and he tells him, hey, without me, you guys won't have any access to Airwolf. But Zeus is ready. If his joyous smirk on his face is any indication, he picks up the Batman hot phone, it's very red, and he punches one button really hard, and then he says, all right, before he walks over to the nearby window.
I bet you it was a big deal that this phone was cordless whenever this episode came out, because I don't think that was a thing, really, in the 80s.
Things had to be touching.
I remember when we got our first cordless phone, kind of thinking it was cool and sleek, and that also I couldn't reach it. They mounted it too high on the wall for me.
I think we had a sneaker. That was our first cordless phone. You know, remember those?
Yeah.
They were a shoe phone.
I remember you having a phone kind of like that when I met you. Maybe it was a hamburger. Maybe it was a sneaker.
No telling. Good bit of any.
Ball or scorpion.
Zeus tells Archangel, we no longer have a need for Airwolf, my friend. And then he smirks. They all stand around, but for a bit, because we have to wait until we hear the sound of a helicopter approaching. Archangel walks over to the window to get a better look. Just as he does, a red version of Airwolf ascends into view, and Zeus tells him, hey, meet Airwolf II. Shouldn't they have given a different name?
Yeah, I think, like, just use another animal, like Air Bear.
Airwolf Jr.? I like that, too.
Airwolf Prime.
Archangel stares in disbelief with his mouth open, and inside the cockpit, we see none other than Harlan Jenkins. He gives a little wave to Archangel and says, so we meet again, buckaroo.
I wish Zeus had said it too. Like, when he's like, oh, you won't have Airwolf without me. Think again, buckaroo.
All the characters,
all the bad guys,
buckaroo,
like their big line.
We got to get Airwolf, and the good guys. We got to get Airwolf back, buckaroo.
String, where are we gonna get it, buckaroo?
I don't know, buckaroo. Buckaroo, I'm not sure what to do. That's Kate.
Really? I'm curious.
That's Ernest Borgnine.
After Harlan Jenkins says buckaroo, we get, I counted, 13 soundless seconds of Archangel glaring at Zeus and Zeus grinning. And that happens.
Yeah.
You gotta fill time. It's 48 minutes. This second Airwolf being piloted by a drunken lunatic spells bad news for our heroes. But before we find out what they're up to, let's take a break. Meanwhile, the good guy trio are at some sort of video editing facility, and according to Ernest Borgnine, they've been there for 4 hours, 17 minutes, 36 seconds. He's counting. And he asks Catelyn, can we trust this guy, this video editor? Because this is, secret stuff. And she says, no, yeah, I trust every move he makes. I used to date him, and he never misses. Now, Ernest Borgnine, without skipping a fucking beat, says, I don't mean that. It was delightful.
It really was.
I found it wonderful.
He doesn't want to think about her that way, I guess, Ernest Borgnine.
I do kind of feel like that wasn't important information for Catelyn to share. I don't know what that had to do with anything in that moment.
I like this old-timey keyboard, though, that has different colored keys that the guy's working on.
And Hawk, he's talking to the guy that Catelyn's talking about, this very sexually proficient guy, and he has him stop at the screenshot of a helicopter, and the guy tells him, if you pick any portion of that screen no smaller than an ant's behind, I can enhance it 1,200 times.
Enhance.
That's not the thing anyone can ever do. You can't do that, but 80s technology, man. They see some sort of like smoking gun on the picture after he enhances it. It proves it wasn't their helicopter or some weld thing they keep talking about, probably related to the bullet holes. It's not important. But whatever it is, they seem to be in the clear. But just then, in the editing booth, the phone rings, and it's apparently for Hawk. Someone knew he was there. He grabs it and he says hello. But on the other end of the line, we see it's the Admiral from earlier. Only he doesn't respond. He called Hawk and is not ready to talk to him. Why, guys?
He's busy.
Because he's fucking playing Pac-Man.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And he's going to town on it and yelling, and he yells at Hawk, and he says, give me a minute, keep your pants on. But he can't quite get to the power pellet in time.
Oh, man.
One of the ghosts eats him. It's probably Inky or something.
I bet he's good at it, though. I bet he plays a lot.
He's one of the number one Pac-Man players.
Yeah.
He's on all of the arcade machines everywhere as Admiral.
My quarter's sitting there. I got next.
Hawk realizes it's the Admiral, and he calls him as such, to which the Admiral says, you'd be a great sports announcer because you didn't call me by my name? This was very weird.
Yeah, I don't really understand that at all.
But the Admiral gets down to business. He tells Hawk Archangel was fired, and he gushes all over Archangel, by the way. And then he says, String, you better go looking for him. Hawk starts to ask questions. The Admiral just hangs up on him, probably to go play more Pac-Man.
Well, he doesn't want to get out of the zone. He's in it, too. You can tell he's like playing his best and he's focused. He couldn't even like talk into the phone.
The auto zone? We talked about Pep Boys recently.
Yeah, that's
might
true.
as well
Equal
expand.
opportunity.
You mean Midas well? Because that's another car place, right? Midas.
Didn't it have George Foreman as the guy for a while?
I think it did, yeah.
Hey, look at my big grills.
He went straight from one of those to a Captain D's commercial, I bet, at the time.
Wow. Yeah, and I kind of want Captain D's again soon. It's been a long time.
Like 25 years for me. I don't remember the last
I don't think
time.
I ever had Captain D's.
Oh, I've had it, and let me tell you, it's not very good. But I want it.
Hawk tells Borgnine it's time to go, and when the latter asks where they're going, Hawk tells him to help out a friend, but he doesn't add anything to that, so presumably that doesn't narrow anything down for Ernie here, and he just goes along with it. It's a pretty jarring cut, but we're now at a swimming pool where tons of beach babes are all here in their high-waisted bikini bottoms. They've got their poofy, enormous hair, and guess who else is here? Harlan Jenkins. He's wearing his brown sport coat and black jeans, hitting on every single woman that gets within his vicinity.
Buckle.
Massive.
This is the most like his character from Get Even that he is, I think, this scene.
He's also wandering around in this, and which is very Huck Finney.
Doing all like, between leering.
After constantly being rebuked by the beautiful women, he finally sits down, and he's talking with several South American revolutionaries, as it turns out. They are led by the melty-faced Alonzo de Lomo, who, after Harlan points out he's not there solely to marvel at all, or I believe he says, marvel at fine bodies. Guy tells him, Harlan, my people are getting antsy. We need to move on to the next step in the plan. Harlan says, cool down. I'm going to be stealing $1 billion piece of equipment from the U.S. government, and I don't think they'd be willing to package it up nice and clean for a tortilla republic like yours. And those are his words, not mine. I think he also says, if you comprendo my meaning, sir.
Yeah, he does. There's a lot of gesticulating here, too. Like, he's just the shoulder pads on his sport coat are going up and down a lot.
DeLomo threatens him some more and reminds him, we're paying you a lot of money. And Harlan reveals he knows he's one of only 2 pilots in the world that can pilot an Airwolf. And guess what? There's not much you can do to threaten me, because without me, you can't steal Airwolf. Then, as a parting phrase, Harlan Jenkins says, quesadilla, amigo.
I laughed out loud at that. I didn't expect it. It's like he's just using quesadilla as a goodbye phrase.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
And there's no way that
See you later.
That was not in the script. He
Bingo.
did that. I guarantee
Yeah.
it.
That was a Wings Hauser, right?
Classic Wings Hauser, where he just keeps saying stuff and then like, I don't know what to do about it. I guess we'll leave it in.
Hawk and Ernest Borgnine are flying around trying to find Archangel, and they tell us they know they're being set up thanks to bullet holes and seams or whatever, but they can't figure out who's doing it. So they vow to continue their search for their old boss. In the meantime, out in the desert, a limo and a van with a big cat toy stuck to the roof, they park and out steps Zeus, as well as the Secretary of Defense Dunlap, and the former tells the latter, I brought you out to the desert with my cat toy van because I have a reason. I'm going to show you the single greatest aircraft in the world, perhaps even better than Airwolf.
I would have been afraid there was a really big cat that was going to play with that.
Batted around a little. No, the cats are next episode.
Yeah, we have to wait a week on that.
So many, though, and perhaps a man who works on their behalf.
Zeus also says that the plans for Airwolf II are so secret they're only stored in the computer on Airwolf II. So if it's gone, it's gone. The U.S. can't build another.
Yeah, I hope no one tries to steal it.
Zeus has a big man behind him with a walkie-talkie say, Red Wolf, we have a go. And suddenly, Airwolf II ascends from behind a nearby hill, and Harlan Jenkins is crazy-eyed. He begins to just zip around and push buttons that say things like Copperhead and Maverick, and all sorts of missiles are fired, and the ground explodes everywhere. Then Zeus tells the secretary, look, there's one more demonstration. Harlan pushes the laser button, much like in Street Hawk, and then a big laser beam shoots out and things explode.
Copperhead shoots out snakes. To be clear, Maverick shoots out Dirk Nowitzki.
Yep, correct. But that's not all. Airwolf II here shoots a bridge, a random car, and a hill, and then some other helicopter shows up and shoots a missile at it. So it shoots that helicopter down?
Yeah, I guess that was part of the training, but
Was there somebody in there?
Were they just going to be like, that guy's going to
not.
die in the demonstration of how great Airwolf is?
Listen, there's something you should know about the training. We're not all making it home tonight. Can you imagine like going to your first day at a job and like, okay, this is just the orientation. And they're like, one of you will never see your family again.
It might happen this week. It might happen a year from now, but it will happen.
It's going to happen on the get to know you module.
And Harlan yells Yahoo, of course, before he blows up the other
Like
helicopter.
Mario.
And then he makes Airwolf II wiggle. He does this a lot. He flies Airwolf and it jiggles about. I don't know how helicopters work.
I don't know either.
But this thing can move.
We probably should by now know how helicopters work from talking about them so often. I also think that Wings Hauser, speaking of him and Mario saying a similar phrase, perhaps should have been chosen over Chris Pratt as the voice of Mario in the Mario movie.
I will take just about anyone over Chris Pratt, but...
Hey, I'm Luigi. We got somewhere to be. Have you seen how fine Peach is looking tonight?
Meatballs, amigo.
I've been plumbing. Yeah, I'm a plumber. I plumb for ass. Wings, this isn't what we wanted.
That's the best Toad I can do.
I side with Bowser, actually.
You know, that K-Max got some cool stuff going on. All right. Secretary Dunlap is psyched about this test, and he radios in to Harlan and says, that test was superb. Harlan quips back, well, thanks, sir, but a helicopter like this, the test is routine. It's the pilot who's superb, my friend. He's patting himself on the back.
You're pretty good at capturing the essence of whatever Wings Hauser is trying to sound like. There was something you did on our Get Even episodes.
It was the...
Pay the rent.
Yeah, oh, it's still so good.
Yeah.
That's how he says it.
He's a weird man, and I like
I
impersonating
feel like
weird
a kid
people.
at a circus with you talking like Wings Hauser. Do the one where he does this.
All right, let me autograph this for you, son.
Yeah.
Here you go. Make it out to Brian.
Yeah, if you would. Yeah.
And by the way, it was the pilot who was superb. Makes the defense secretary like chuckle, like he's tickled by it.
Yeah, he kind of likes him.
And like all good horse girls, we shift and we see Archangel. He's playing horse polo, or I guess just polo, right?
Is there there's a water polo, right?
But you call it water polo, so you would call horse polo just polo,
I
right?
guess so. I was not sure when I saw that. I was like, what even is that? And I think you're right.
I think it's just polo.
I like
Interesting.
the idea of calling it horse polo.
That's where the horses play, though.
Well, he's playing by himself, too.
Yeah,
I guess unless you say he and the horse are playing
And this
together.
definitely isn't dressage because he's not doing any dances with flags or anything on top of the horse.
This isn't the Technodrome.
The hippodrome.
Hippodrome. The Technodrome was a thing in Ninja Turtles. Same thing.
Yeah, of course, yeah. We've covered both of those things, probably.
But even having been fired from the firm, Archangel's still an impeccable dresser. He's still wearing all white, Although this time both of his lenses are black, not just the one. He's just wearing sunglasses.
Which is probably what he should just do.
That's what I would do, I think. Plus, he would look kind of mysterious.
I don't know. I think I'm more for the one eye patch. That's pretty cool. I like it.
Yeah, and you don't see it that often.
Yeah.
Ever.
What about this? One of those remains blacked out. The other one's like blue or something.
Or it's a transition lens.
Yeah.
So when it goes out, it can get dark.
My dad had those at this same year, probably. Those are coming back. Have you guys seen these?
Nope.
I've seen people wearing those again. And
good for them.
I wish they are very practical when you think about it. However, when I had a pair as a child, like you'd go inside and they would not transition fast enough at all.
That's it. It's like 4.5 minutes of you stumbling around because it's too dark inside.
You pee on the floor on accident.
Well, anyway, Hawk and Ernest Borgnine fly in here to the horse farm via helicopter, of course, which is that I guess that's just the sole means of transportation in Airwolf.
Yeah, there aren't cars.
Oh no, there was the cat toy van. So it's cat toy vans or helicopters.
Wings Hauser later takes off in one of the just like all the movies or shows he's in, there's a vehicle with no doors or top that I don't even think is a Jeep.
It's just like a motor and a wheel, and that's it.
Like kind of a frame.
They arrive here at Archangel's, and I believe Hawk tells them, "You're harder to find than a cat in a dog house," which I don't think is an expression. I think he's full of just making shit up, too.
Yeah, it really sets my guts on fire.
But Archangel cuts them both off, and he sighs, takes a deep breath, and he very sheepishly says, "You know, guys, I'm really sore about how I didn't believe you when you told me you didn't rob that train. And I mean, you guys are my best friends in the whole world, you know? I mean, you guys are my friends, right? You definitely checked yes when I passed the paper to Brandy McPherson, and it said, 'Do you like me, Archangel? Check yes or check no.' You checked yes, right? So we are best buds." Like, he's very hamming it up. And he feels bad, and I feel bad for Archangel.
I do too.
A little bit.
You can tell, Archangel just wants to be accepted.
But Borgnine shits his pants with delight. He is so excited, and he says, "Continue. I love hearing a Fed grovel," and then he does a belly laugh.
His only kind.
Archangel tells him, "Look, I've only been hard on you lately, Hawk, because the committee has been riding my ass lately. And anyway, you're not going to believe this. I could get in trouble for telling you they've got a second Airwolf." Borgnine is in disbelief, and he basically all but says, "Oh, baloney." He should have.
And does anybody have any?
And then Hawk, he is 100% totally sober, as he says, "You mean the committee? That's the Airwolf?" And that is how he says that line.
This might be in bad taste, but do you think old Jan Michael and Wings Hauser tied one on after work?
100%. There's no way they didn't get blitzed together and then fight and talk about Airwolf.
I bet they did it just like the end of the episode where they kind of went until someone was dead.
And not just their careers.
The group all walk back together to Archangel's car, and by the group, I mean the three characters and Archangel's horse, who's a good boy.
Yeah, he is.
This horse is awesome. He's
regal.
Quiet, very regal.
What do you think his
pretty.
name is?
So we've got Archangel and Zeus.
If he was a dog, his name would be Barkangel, obviously, but he's not.
He's not. He's a horse. So what I think it is his name is like Jupiter or Saturn.
Okay.
That seems
I
right.
like that. And
Yeah.
that's a good name for a horse.
Jupiter the horse.
I kept wanting him to hitch that horse. He just held the reins the whole time. And then at the end, he gave him to Ernest Borgnine.
And he asked him politely, he's like, "Dom, would you?" And Ernest Borgnine goes, "Of course I will." And he holds the horse.
I wish Ernest Borgnine had just swiftly hopped atop the horse.
And elegantly rode
In
away.
one motion, yeah.
And that horse is not a Borgnine horse, by the way. I want to point that out because if it were, it would huff and belly laugh every time it was on scene. But not. It's a nice, polite, sweet horse. It's not a Borgnine.
No.
I'm just saying.
You can tell by looking at it even.
Not heavy enough.
Not
I would
smiling.
love to see a horse that has like an Ernest Borgnine belly. It's just see it underneath.
Can horses get bellies?
I don't think so.
I've
I
never
think they could
seen
get
it.
wide,
Dude,
but I don't know.
horses are so jacked.
They really are. They're strong.
Yeah, they look like you can tell in their arms.
Yeah.
I guess
The
it's all
front
just
ones.
legs.
Did you guys know that when horses run, all four of their legs are off the ground at the same time?
That's so weird. I guess, yeah, because the photos, you see those photos of them kind of midair galloping.
That's neat. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I guess they're technically jumping when they run.
And rabbits have that thing where they have to move them in sets.
Yeah,
Their
like the
legs.
back legs go together.
Yeah.
And like my bunny, Voodoo, when she would punch because she'd get frustrated, she would punch with both fists, the
Which
front
is
fist
really
at the same
cute.
time. Yeah. It's adorable and it kind of hurts.
And bats can eat
How
a
many?
pound of mosquitoes every day.
Why did you say that, Brian? There are two people here who are plenty capable of saying that fact, and then you stole
I think
it.
I've said it the least, so
That's true.
I would like to catch up.
Yeah, you got some work to do if you're going to try to catch up.
Archangel decides it is time to call Zeus and tell him, look, there is a possible issue with someone involved with Airwolf II. And when he grabs his white car phone and calls, someone else answers and gives him a bit of guff, a bit of trouble. He tells whoever it is on the other line about the potential Bravo code situation and says to tell Zeus to meet me at the airfield. After he hangs up, we see who it was on the other end of that phone call. It's Harlan fucking Jenkins.
Yeah.
And guess what? Wings Hauser is acting up a storm here. Our good guy trio hop back in the helicopter and head to the test site, and along the way, Archangel reveals, oh, by the way, that was Harlan on the phone. I thought it would be nobody until I saw it was Harlan, because why would you trust Harlan enough to tell Zeus to come here?
I don't know why, just from my glimpse of Harlan in this episode, why the bad guy syndicate is trusting him at all from the get-go.
But everyone is.
Yeah. Wings Hauser is not an actor one would find trustworthy on screen, his presence.
No, at best, he is an anti-hero in his roles. I don't think he could play the good guy.
He would be the kind of guy who could be a good guy's friend, but in the way where the good guy understands, like, yeah, he's kind of a piece of shit.
Yeah, you're kind of describing exactly what he did in Road to Revenge.
After mentioning Harlan Jenkins, Hawk says, wait a minute, you mean good old boy Harlan Jenkins? And that's about the best way to describe that character. So yes, Hawk, good old boy Harlan Jenkins. And this helicopter ride, the whole thing is backstory.
This is Jan Michael Vincent's sweatiest scene.
He's so sweaty. The other guys are, Ernest Borgnine isn't sweaty.
Yeah, that's what makes it really stand out.
We find out that Harlan wanted to be the pilot for the Airwolf project, but he ended up getting beaten out by Hawk. So he's always had this little bit of bitterness towards Hawk in the back of his mind.
Little bit.
And then after the scientist who created the helicopter died, Jenkins has been trying to tell everyone that actually he was the genius who invented it, even though he very clearly wasn't. Oh, and by the way, his ego, it's big as Texas.
Yeah.
At the Airwolf II facility, Dave, you know Dave from The Office, he just told a hilarious fucking joke because everybody is laughing their asses off. And these are all just goons. We don't know anything about them. And we come into the scene and they're like,
They should have like good camaraderie.
You know, it is showing that these guys get along.
Good morale at work.
It was a great place to work at the Airwolf II facility. But while the fellas all laugh, Harlan, he's seen peering up above various boxes at the guys. He's sneaking around like he's some big old 1980s bozo of a man.
He does those little eye darts even.
Mm-hmm. And Harlan makes his way into the Airwolf II cockpit and he begins poking a bunch of buttons and the rotor turns, the chopper fires up. And the men stop laughing at Dave's joke and grab a bunch of guns and fire at Airwolf II. Just bang, 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 but nothing happens.
Yeah, that's not going to fucking work.
Nary a dent on Airwolf II. She fires a missile and it blows a hole in the wall, allowing for Harlan's escape. And he, of course, doubles back, blows up the facility, like 5 houses that are out here.
Kills countless people.
Oh, yeah, the guys all rush out and start shooting him again. So he says, you won't play kicks with a mule, do ya? And then he shoots them to death. Yeah. Kicks with a mule.
He's the mule in this scenario.
Correct. And he kicks.
How would you describe his mood here?
Joyous.
Jovial? Elated?
Delightful.
I actually thought he was just going to escape and not hurt the men.
I did
and
too.
That turned out not to happen.
I thought it was just a simple steal it and go.
Right.
Now, I guess you could argue that logically in the show this makes sense because there wouldn't be security footage. It's 1985 or whatever. And these are your only witnesses as to who stole it.
Yeah, take them out now and they won't come
So
after
if
you.
you're totally evil, I just guess I wish Harlan was a more like non-murdery bad guy.
Because you want to root for him.
Yeah. And I still kind of do.
The problem is Stringfellow Hawk is not a guy I want to root for.
Jan Michael Vincent's not, at least at this point in his career, a likable leading
Well, he doesn't
man.
really have any charisma as an actor.
That's what Ernest Borgnine's for.
That's true. And Wings Hauser is not short on charisma.
No, he has so much of it.
It's bursting out of the Airwolf II as we speak. And about that time, our good guys and their helicopter arrive, and they see all this damage. Everything's destroyed, as well as Harlan flying around in Airwolf II. They realize he's the one behind all the trouble they're having, and Hawk radios into Harlan just as Jenkins puts his thumb on the fire missile button. And the guys realize we are screwed here because we're in a regular helicopter. Presumably this thing doesn't have any snakes in it.
They can't do any Airwolf stuff.
I did look this up, and regular helicopters don't have lasers either.
None of them?
Not usual. Not like commercial ones.
Huh. But like the hospital ones do.
Hospital ones and Airwolf ones.
Okay. They decide they need to play to Jenkins's ego if they're going to make it out of this alive. So Hawk asks him, what's the deal, Harlan? And Harlan says, I want to settle the score, our old score. We can go one-on-one, Airwolf to Airwolf. Hawk says, well, how do you think a battle between the two of us will go? And let's just say Harlan has some opinions about that.
I thought that was settled a long time ago.
Not in my mind, cowboy. Not in my mind.
Yeah, well, how do you see it?
Well, I think you'd be coyote beat in about 15 minutes, son.
You know, Harlan, you sound a little like a coyote yourself. Always yip, 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 yip.
That's funny. I tell you, though, I could blow you right out of the sky right now and spare you any future embarrassments. I could do that for you.
Be your best friend and blow you up, my friend. What do you think about that? Coyotes yip?
I guess.
That's not a thing I knew.
I thought it was more like, oh!
Yeah.
Only
or
when
one of those.
barking.
moon's full, I think, is when they do that.
The moon's full.
I think
coyotes howl when the moon's full, right?
When the moon's shadow is full.
Oh,
And,
yeah, moon shadow.
That's the one.
Leaping and a jumping.
werewolves do it too.
Oh, okay. Also, the second facet to this, that is not as cool of a thing that you think you said, Stringfellow Hawk. When you're like, you're like a coyote, yip, 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 yip.
No, I actually thought his original put down was fine, though. When Wing says, like, how do you think it would go one-on-one? He's like, I think we kind of know. that was good because it's like, I beat you already. That's why I was Airwolf.
We have the result already.
But when he heard coyote meat,
Yeah, he
said,
just
I
kept
gotta
going.
do a coyote
That's
thing
the
too.
thing. He used to always stop there.
The coyote thing, it's the level of insult we were getting from Hulk Hogan in the Baywatch episode.
That's true. Bring the escrow papers, Flair.
I'm going to put mustard on you like a potato, Flair.
Hawk tells Harlan, I'm not in here alone. And look, Harlan, I thought you were bigger than that. You're going to kill innocent people here.
Yeah.
We just watched him do it,
Yeah.
so
I
not
don't
so much.
think that would bother him.
But Harlan says, well, that's real sweet. I tell you what, that you think I'm that nice and polite. And, I'll tell you, you pick the time, I'll pick the place, and we'll get together and we'll have ourselves an Airwolf battle.
Thing is, I'm a bit of an air serial killer.
Oh, so you're saying if Jacob Kilmer had the way to get in the air,
He
this
could
would
have
be
done
him.
that. Which actually he did have a way to get in the air, right? Wasn't he?
Oh, he was trying to get
escape
one.
by one? Yeah.
Maybe the pilot.
Another
was
helicopter.
Stringfellow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all ties together.
Wow.
The beach and the air together at last.
They belong with one another.
Harlan does eventually fly off, though, and he says, Hawk, keep an ear out for the phone, because I'll be in touch. And that allows the heroes to head back home. They're safe. They're not going to get killed here. Harlan then is busy meeting with the South American guys again, and he tells Delomo that he's almost ready to deliver Airwolf II. I have a little thing to attend to. And Delomo is dumbfounded. This is a multi-billion-dollar, they're probably paying Harlan Jenkins so much money, and Jenkins is so committed to fucking around, it's blowing his mind.
He has really only one thing on his mind, and it's sweet revenge.
But Harlan does convince Delomo that the firm would never let them get away with stealing Airwolf II. They would send Airwolf 1 after him anyway, so why don't we take advantage of this situation? I'll go after Airwolf now. I'll have the advantage. They'll be on the defensive now. He says all of this while wearing a shirt that makes him look like a watermelon. I might add that. And he says things like, I'm going to do it my way, Texas style.
Is this when he has the playing cards? When he...
Yes.
Yeah.
When he's flipping them at someone.
I feel like that was him, too.
Oh,
just picking up
definitely.
playing cards and flicking them at a guy who's just sitting there.
I thought that he was throwing all of those in like a hat and he was doing it on the fly, like on a shot that they didn't even cut from. And he was actually like getting them all in a hat. I was like, wow, Wings Hauser.
Let me do
Pretty
a little
impressive.
bit of a sleight of hand trick for you fellas before I steal Airwolf.
And then
Yeah, he does that again.
Archangel has since been dragged back into the firm's headquarters, and he demands to be told what the meaning of all this is. And Zeus, he's here to eat shit. Let me tell you that. He's going to apologize, all while the Admiral continues to sass him, as the Admiral tends to do. And Zeus ends up begging Archangel to come back and get Airwolf and Hawk and have them either apprehend Airwolf 2 or blow it out of the sky. And Archangel, he says, you know what? I'm not doing this for you. I'll do it. I'm doing it for my country. I still don't like you guys, but I have some demands.
That's a true patriot being willing to try to take down Airwolf 2 for America.
And Zeus.
Yeah.
He demands that they double the Airwolf budget, give him access to the one computer that has the files on it. I don't know what files, but I don't know, Minesweeper is on that one. It's cool. And best of all, you're out of here, Zeus. You got to be out of the picture. Reassign yourself. Zeus then solemnly agrees, and then the Admiral sasses him again. Meanwhile, Harlan is being racist to his South American coworkers as they load up a bunch of bombs and stuff, and Delomo's chatting with some unnamed goon. He says, I can't let Harlan face off against Airwolf 1. I need this thing for my South American overthrow of the government or whatever.
Bad guy plan.
Yeah. He says, I think there's a way to get out in front of this and stop it before it even starts. But he leaves it there as the scene fades, and Hawk and Borgnine, they're in a volcano. That's what it fades into. I guess they just leave the helicopter in this volcano.
Pretty cool.
Because they hide it from the firm. Where do you find a volcano?
I don't know. I've never come across one I could put my car in.
There's not a whole lot of them in the Midwest.
No, and I bet you there aren't any Hyundai Elantras in any volcanoes.
Oh, I don't know that.
I think that's a fair statement, Brian. I think you can say that and with 99.99% accuracy be right.
Yep, I better put it on the internet. Hold on.
So in the volcano, Borgnine's busy polishing some missiles when Hawk asks if there's any other way the government could stop Airwolf II. Like, do we have to do this? And the bloated old man says, against Airwolf? Sure. All they'll need to do is call in the Air Force, the Navy, and the Marines.
I'm full of gusto.
And these Airwolves are no joke. That's what I'm learning here. I bet they could even take on a crazy man who lives in the mountain and likes cats.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Hawk realizes the only way to stop Harlan Jenkins is with Airwolf 1. You have to face him in person. Well, face him in helicopter in person. He climbs in his America Jeep and he leaves Borgnine to fill up the attack helicopter with highly explosive materials. And we're back at Santini Air where Archangel is wandering around looking for Hawk, but he can't find anyone until our hero does arrive and the two suddenly realize, wait a minute, Catelyn's not here. She should be. Where is she? And Hawk sees a letter under the phone receiver, pulls it out, and then he looks at this paper harder than I've seen a human look at any paper. It's like up in his face. He squints and his sweats everywhere. And finally, he says, they're taking Catelyn. But there's also a clue in the letter. It says that she is over the mountains of the moon.
The shadow of the moon?
Not the shadow of the moon, the mountains of the moon, which apparently both guys here, because they're good guys and they're not just meat, they're also learned.
Yeah.
They understand that poetry is from Edgar Allan Poe, and it means that she's in Dorado Canyon.
Yeah, I knew that right away. I was like, oh, Dorado Canyon, of course.
Quoted the whole thing, and it's, well, why don't you say it? I have it in front of me, but you tell me.
Oh, 'twas
the fall of the House of Usher.
Yes, the heart kept beating under the floorboards.
Nevermore. No, the poem is Over the Mountains of the Moon, Down the Valley of Shadow. Ride, boldly ride. The shade replied, if you seek for El Dorado.
I think that's Gangster's Paradise.
I've been spending all our lives flying Airwolf in Gangster's Paradise.
You'd be in charge of the gang if you had an Airwolf.
I would think so. Hawk radios to Dom, bring a lady, which that's what they call Airwolf. And finally, we get your standard Airwolf activation sequence. Basically, the theme song happens. This is the middle of the episode. Rising out of the volcano comes the attack helicopter, and then inside of it, we see an elderly man with the body the shape of Dr. Robotnik, and Ernest Borgnine, he hits that booster button. It's a Airwolf thing. Everyone's seen it. Boop, it makes like an Atari fart sound, and whoosh, Airwolf flies away. Didn't Straight Hawk have a button that made him whoosh?
Yeah, of course. All these things in the 80s had whoosh buttons.
And what you do is you speed up the footage, so it looks weird but fast.
Yeah, because that's the only way you know how to do it yet. You'll find another way later.
At the South American bad guy compound here in North America, Delomo has his goons throw Catelyn down on a dirty bed, and they undo her gag, apologizing for being so rough. Delomo's very polite here, despite having kidnapped a woman. When she asks what she's doing here, he tells her, you are bait to get Hawk here, and she goes, Hawk? But just as he tells her that, Harlan Jenkins arrives, and he does his weird, hokey, creepy cowboy thing to Catelyn, but he can't seal the deal just yet, because having heard that Hawk is headed this way, he knows he has to get into Airwolf II, but before he leaves, he tells Delomo, you better pray I'm as good as I am. Yuck.
Yeah, I liked that for some reason. I didn't as much like the part where he's like, you guys brought me a present when he sees Catelyn.
And he's rubbing his beard and like staring at her.
Yeah.
Harlan loads up in his Jeep to drive off, and as he leaves, we see Archangel and Hawk scuttling their way up to the compound, and they use various hay bales to hide behind. Delomo and his men lead Catelyn out, and he says, I want Hawk to see you. He's nearby. I can tell. What?
Smells him.
Oh, okay. I bet that man
The booze.
smells. Yeah, when he sweats, it smells like Captain Morgan or something.
It smells like a guy who's sick.
Hawk and Archangel just kind of scamper around the compound. They're looking for a way in, like their big boss in Groznygrad, and they're trying to get into the compound, but Volgan's there, and Volgan shoots lightning bolts and stops them. But then it turns out Ocelot's also there, and we've kind of learned at this point that the Sorrow is the father of Ocelot, and the boss is the mother, but they had to give him away because the Patriots, the Lolly-Lule-Lo, took him.
This is so much detail that I know your van and your beard is real.
Yeah, that's why I did it. But as they do this, Harlan puts on his flight jumpsuit and rushes over to Airwolf II, which is on the side of the highway, just covered in like a little bit of grass.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
I did kind of have that idea, like, I bet no one will know this is a helicopter with a little like cloth over it.
Yeah, he's like, I stole something that's worth more than anything on planet Earth. Where are you going to put it? Plain sight.
By the highway.
Yeah, I'll put a blankie on it.
Hawk and Archangel come upon a couple of South American goons, and they get the jump on them. They force the bad guys to toss their weapons to the side. But just as they do, a couple of other goons arrive, and they hop onto the good guys and literally on top of them, and a fight breaks out. And it's your standard action fight thing and all these things. It's not that interesting. One thing that is interesting is the fact that several participants in it are wearing khakis. You don't see khaki fights often.
Especially from henchmen. From here on out, this episode's really heavy on sort of empty action scenes.
Right. Well, at one point, Archangel holds one of the goons in place and says, here's a present for you. And then Hawk roundhouse kicks him in the back to the ground.
Yeah, that's a bad gift. I'll say it right now. Don't give me one of those.
Shit.
I did put one on my Amazon wish list.
That's why I bought it for your birthday. Catelyn yells for Hawk, and he rushes over to her with his gun drawn. But bad news, he sees Delomo there, and she's holding Catelyn at gunpoint. The two are in a standoff. Borgnine arrives in the distance, in Airwolf, fortunately, but before he can help the situation, Harlan has also arrived in Airwolf II. Borgnine tells Hawk, I've got Harlan covered. You take care of Catelyn. But Jenkins says, no. You make a move and I'll kill them all right now. So Harlan has the advantage. Delomo realizes he's boned, and he decides the only way to get out of the situation, that's if Jenkins kills Hawk in Airwolf battle. So he says, this is against my best discretion, but he hands the gun away, and he gets to watch the show.
And then he basically is like, I hope Hawk wins. I'm a huge criminal boss, but and this would really not be good for me, but you know what? He is the good guy. I hope Hawk wins.
But also, Harlan Jenkins is that obnoxious, so I do get it.
We're thinking kind of the other side as the viewers, though, at least we specifically are.
Yeah,
We're thinking
we agree.
I know Wings is a bad guy, but can't help but root for him.
But because I didn't know about Airwolf, there is the non-zero chance that Wings Hauser kills Jan Michael Vincent and then becomes Airwolf.
Well, Hawk gets in Airwolf and he changes into his jumpsuit while Borgnine calls Harlan Jenkins a goat herder. That's fairly appropriate. Sure. And once Hawk is ready, he ascends in Airwolf, and Harlan Jenkins lets out another Yahoo. We get a second one here. And finally, 42 fucking minutes into this episode of television, we get the goddamn helicopter battle that the intro promised me.
Telling you.
We had to wait this long.
There was nothing else to see until this part.
The fucking synth soundtrack kicks into gear. Harlan starts shooting missiles and all sorts of shit everywhere and just explosions, and he keeps missing Airwolf. And the mountain then explodes, and Hawk says, congratulations, you killed a mountain. And that pisses Harlan off, and he says, yeah, we'll try this, Chicken Hawk, which is an insult, but it's also a hawk. They're kind of cool, right?
And I think Foghorn Leghorn says that one.
Yeah, I think he does. You know what else he does is he's Southern, like Harlan Jenkins.
Yeah, and like Michael. Foghorn Leghorn's pretty related to this Airwolf episode.
Didn't go in knowing I would talk about Foghorn Leghorn, but here we are.
Yeah, you did.
In your heart of hearts.
Harlan shoots machine guns, and there's laser. There's just shit everywhere. And Harlan shoots Airwolf with a laser beam. He hits it. It goes. Airwolf shakes. It's not down, though. Harlan says, guess what? One more of those and you'll be desert barbecue, boy.
You know what? Hawk should have said back, one more from me and you'll be Texas toast. He 100% should have said that.
Missed opportunity. On the ground, Ernest Borgnine, he's punching the air, kind of like we saw Grandpa Munster do when he watched Herman wrestle.
He's rooting from the ground.
Yeah, and he's, get him.
Everyone's so into this thing as though someone up there is not about to die.
Yeah, like, this is a tragedy.
Harlan does seem to have the edge here. Airwolf has been on the defensive the whole time, and he got laser beamed. But Stringfellow Hawk is hardly phased. Whereas Harlan Jenkins is aggressive and wild, Stringfellow Hawk is calm and measured. Jenkins yells, "Via con Dios, Senor Hawk." He pushes the copperhead snakes button, the one that we mentioned shoots snakes out of it, at the other Airwolf.
They start hissing.
But misses. Doesn't hit Airwolf 1.
I'm glad he has other buttons he can try.
So Hawk goads Harlan and says, anyone who shoots as lame as you didn't design an Airwolf advanced weapon system. And that pisses Harlan off more, and he pushes the Maverick button. Who did you say it shot?
Dirk Nowitzki.
I said it shoots John McCain.
Oh, okay. There you go.
In the election cycle for John McCain and Obama, they kept calling him the Maverick.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because Sarah Palin would say it. Maverick. Yep, exactly.
But as Harlan pushes the Maverick button to shoot either the basketball guy or John McCain at Airwolf 1, Hawk pushes the chafe button, which signifies that his pants are riding up too high.
Yeah, which hurts, but it helps him in the battle.
Yeah, that stops John McCain. Borgnine pumps his fists and just basically goes, fuck yeah, because he's psyched up about this helicopter battle. Hawk tells Jenkins, look, you need to land Airwolf 2 right now. I am still in a good mood. The second I'm not, you're going to be in trouble. Harlan, he's been on the offensive the whole time, though, so he thinks he's in the lead. He's close to ending it, and he says, not a chance, and just explosion. The helicopters are fighting each other, guys.
Yeah.
That is what's happening.
Loudly.
With Harlan Jenkins refusing Hawk's offer to end this peacefully, Hawk suddenly pushes the Atari fart button. Like, if Qbert could fart, that's what this would sound like. Do you think Qbert could fart?
Yeah, Qbert can not only fart, he can shit.
I bet he can nut, too.
Qbert fucks. Qbert is a kind of, let's see, I wouldn't necessarily say like a ladies' man or a man's man. He's more of like a digital images man, like any other digital characters like Qbert.
Yeah, they fuck.
Yeah. Everyone's
thinking, damn, Qbert's looking good right now. He can jump diagonally.
It's not all he can do diagonally.
But all along, pushes the fart button, Hawk has been paying attention to what Slippy Hair had to say. Slippy Hair from Star Fox 64?
Oh, yeah.
Because he does a barrel roll, and he finds himself right behind Harlan, falls him for a moment, gets lined up, the soundtrack starts to crescendo, lines up a shot, one push of the button, that's all it takes, and boom, Harlan explodes.
And is dead.
Dead.
R.I.P.
Airwolf II gone. Hawk has a sigh of relief. Ernest Borgnine rips off his shirt and screams. And hell, even DeLomo seems pretty psyched about this.
He does.
He pumps a fist.
There were two things I wanted to mention during this battle. At one point, someone hits the Hellfire button. I thought that was cool. Maybe it's Kane related. I'm not sure.
That's true. Kane comes out of it.
Yeah. And then
does the hand thing.
The second, I don't know what he said, but I believe it's Jan Michael Vincent who yells something about the backside of hell.
Something about the mountain, but yes.
Kind of metal, I think.
He accidentally wandered into a really cool thing after saying, you're like a coyote, yip, yip, yip.
Yeah, I guess if you say enough things, some of them will be cool. That's kind of what I try to do.
Slowly, the scene fades into that night, and a whole bunch of people, including Hawk, Borgnine, Archangel, Catlin, they're laughing their asses off, probably because somebody heard that joke Dave told and repeated it.
Yeah.
They think it's funny, but they're in some house, I don't know where. Archangel's saying, I might quit the firm, even though he got everything he wanted, because they were rude to him and said he was a traitor. And Hawk
says, I just killed someone minutes ago.
I'm fine with it, too.
And he's getting blitzed, too. He's pouring wine for everybody. He says, well, you called me a liar. So he's a little upset, even though he just killed a man, that he got called a liar. But suddenly a voice rings out, and a familiar old man comes into frame.
Called me a liar.
As I'm calling everyone to dinner.
Chow time! The ladies will gather immediately afterward for dessert at my place. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to present a human being in the business of pigs. This is the Admiral.
The Admiral!
David Robinson.
To the Admiral!
Yes. Long live, long as he can, the Admiral.
Apparently everyone is here at the Admiral's house, and he's cooking dinner. He grabs a big old pan of brightly colored mystery food. And there's all sorts of shit in there. There's tomatoes, grapes, a grapefruit that has been carved into an Easter basket, and then a bunch of brown stuff.
I think it's Harlan. They used his corpse and put it in there.
I thought I saw an eyeball.
Ernest Borgnine sees it and says, "Oh boy, how about that?" And that is not me being goofy. That was his line.
That's what he says. Did you happen to notice if there was any wood paneling on the walls?
Oh, let me tell you that's all that there was on the walls. The walls were wood paneling. Everyone just kind of fawns over how good this shit looks, this food. And what I'm about to play you, I have one last clip, is the literal end of the episode. And I'm honestly just kind of baffled at how much this looks like they had no idea how to end it. So they just kind of said, do something. And
we
then
hit the time limit. It's done.
Bon appetit.
Wonderful. What is it?
Kosher roti.
Kosher what?
Roast pork. Roast pig.
I am baffled.
What?
I don't know.
Why is that funny?
We kind of do that sometimes for our shows because, we don't really have any idea. So we'll just say a random thing, and that is what they did there. They're like, let's just make a joke that no one gets.
I got to tell you, we're not paid $200,000 an episode.
Not at all. It's okay when we do it.
Well, that's, my friends, Airwolf II. It is over. It was fun. What did you guys think of that episode?
I really liked how Wings Hauser was in it.
Yeah, that was honestly an essential part of the episode to be entertaining.
Well, we'll be back next week with one more Airwolf episode. This one's going to be Season 3, Episode 21, Tracks. If you want to check it out, I recommend you do.
It is weirder than this one.
You're not going to believe half of what I say about it, but I tell you, it is what happened. If you like what we do, you can find our website, bootuinc.com, all sorts of stuff on there. We're on YouTube. I believe it's just youtube.com/bootuinc. We have a partner podcast, the Oh Shit podcast. Go check them out. You heard their trailer earlier.
It's called Oh Crap.
Oh, it is called Oh Crap.
Is it Oh Shit?
I just realized it.
Did they up it to R-rated now?
Yeah.
Like, we're done messing around now.
We're done talking about crap. We're talking about shit.
No more half measures.
Next
we're going all the way.
Festering pile of, decaying feces. That's the next name.
Go check them out. And then, of course, we're on Blue Sky, guys. I'm posting on there finally a little bit. I am, Bootu Inc. Brian is at Loud Guitar Brian. What is your thing?
Spinhin314.
That's the one. I saw you on there. And then our patreon.com/Bootu Inc. is available. It's for free. All sorts of bonus content.
Most of it's about Steven Tyler.
Yep. And you can donate if you're there. You don't have to. We would appreciate it. But as we leave here, guys, I have one question for you. There are things like Street Hawk, Airwolf, probably others. If you could have a thing like that, what would yours be? And I'll go first so you guys can take a second to think of it. Do you understand the assignment?
Sure.
Mine, Swamp Cormorant.
Okay,
That's
I do
what I
like
wanna
that. Well, I would car, I think.
The car? Okay. That hasn't been taken.
No.
Oh yeah, if we can steal something from someone else.
I mean, that's what he did.
Well, if that's an option, why invent something when I can steal?
But Plains tractor, if not that.
Plains tractor.
Yeah, it's a tractor.
Plains.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just a tractor. Now that I think about it.
Oh, yeah, that's where they go.
Yeah, they go there.
That's a good point.
They all gather there for some reason, tractors.
Huh.
Nothing's really coming to mind. So do we have any nations that need me to stand over it with, I don't know, some kind of a torch and look upon the city?
Possibly.
Because I could do that. If
like
that's
a gargoyle?
Like a gargoyle. Possibly like a gift from France sort of gargoyle situation. I could do that for a country.
Lady
if they
Liberty,
need that.
the ultimate gargoyle.
She really is.
Roast pig.